What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Turn the Jets Live. I'm your host, Steven Zantz, joined by my co-host, Steven Russo. This week, we're joined by a very special guest, Robin Lundberg of Sports Illustrated and Mad Dog Sports Radio. What's up, guys? How you guys doing tonight?
I'm very
good,
special.
Robin. What's going on? Sorry, go ahead, Robin.
I'm very special. That's how I'm doing. No, how am I doing tonight? Like, I'm sweating. This is Target sweat. I was at Target running around trying to get all this stuff together and make it back for a back to school night, and then make the kids dinner, or two back to school nights, in fact. Then make the kids dinner, then get down here in time to turn on the Jets. So I apologize if my appearance is a little off, but this is that that good Target sweat.
We love it. Steven can relate to the kid stuff. I don't have any kids, so
Definitely.
You guys can talk about that.
I hear you. Yeah, the Target sweat. That's dad talk. So that's awesome, man. Robin, super excited to have you on the show, man. So let's just kick it off real easy. What are your thoughts on the Jets through 2 weeks, and specifically what you saw last Sunday with Zach Wilson?
Well, I mean, look, the Jets stink. I mean, it is what it is. And Zach Wilson, that's the tougher one, because you know what he's dealing with? The ghost of Jets quarterbacks past, right? Because it's not just the fact that he's a rookie quarterback, and a rookie quarterback might tend to struggle. I feel like that would be given a little bit more leeway if he wasn't the Jets rookie quarterback. But because he's the Jets rookie quarterback, and you saw Sam Darnold didn't work out, and he goes to Carolina, he's playing a little bit better in Carolina. Mark Sanchez has the butt fumble. Geno Smith. I don't even remember the stuff that happened with Geno Smith, but I know stuff happened with Geno Smith. And on and on down the line. The Jets have basically been looking for a quarterback since man landed on the moon, right? Zach Wilson it's not like Trevor Lawrence has been better. Nope. I think he has the same number of interceptions as Wilson does, but you hear more about the Wilson thing because it's like, Jets, right? I think anytime a quarterback struggles, Jets fans are going to get nervous about it. The thing with him is there are a couple clear, tangible things that he just has talent, right? Like his arm strength, he has arm talent. He can move around, all that stuff. So you hope that eventually gets taken care of as the infrastructure is built around him, as that gets better. But, the Jets were bad, which is why they got to get Zach Wilson, and they really haven't gotten any better. So he is going to look bad. You just hope he does not remain bad.
Yeah, I think you've hit on a lot of good points. And, as someone who's worked in New York area, specifically on the radio, you've dealt with angry Jets fans, I'm sure, for many years, and totally understand where our heads are at. For me, it's like, it's like you said, we're basically scarred to always seeing bad quarterback play until the guy comes along. Basically, the Jets are now the Browns because the Browns are actually competent. So we need to start looking like how the Browns are starting to look in order for everyone to stop getting on Zach Wilson. And I agree with you. Trevor Lawrence has been pretty much the same. I mean, his teams have gotten blown out 2 straight games. He has thrown a lot of interceptions. I mean, they're all comparing him to Mac Jones, but I'm like, Mac Jones basically is playing football with training wheels. I was unimpressed. I was at the game on Sunday, and I was like, he just did whatever they told him to do, which was like dump off the ball. It wasn't taking deep shots, and he just protected the ball. But like Zach was playing a little more recklessly. So, Robert, I'm just curious, Robert Saleh is obviously his first year. He's going to see a lot of things that he's not used to because he was a defensive coordinator. I'm curious, what your overall impressions of him have been so far through 2 games, and really like what your thoughts were on him before the Jets really hired him, because he really was like a well-regarded defensive coordinator. So I'm curious what you thought of him.
Yeah, he comes from a good pedigree, from a good, structure. I like his demeanor. I like the way he carries himself, right? Schematically and all that, I can't really tell you. We don't have enough of a sample size of him in-game coaching either. Same thing goes for the coach that goes for the quarterback too, right? Like the difference, again, to go to the Zach Wilson, Trevor Lawrence comparison, 2 reasons why it hasn't been the same level of attention. 1, Jacksonville Jaguars, nobody really cares. 2, Urban Meyer is a shield. Right, like he's going to be the first person that gets the critique, and because people don't like Urban Meyer, the Jets coach is not nobody to people, right? Like you got people Googling his name. How do you spell it? Saleh, right? So like it doesn't affect and impact in that way, but that doesn't matter for his long-term future. There, I think there are probably plenty of good coaches who have lost their jobs because they were not in good situations. Todd Bowles, he got a lot of heat when I was doing New York Sports Talk Radio. And I'm not saying he's perfect, but he looks pretty damn good in his new job, right? Which is probably going to lead. It is different, but I think it will probably lead to him getting another head coaching job. And did he do such a terrible job with the Jets? I mean, I guess I picture 7-9 when I picture Todd Bowles, right? Like, and
the new Jeff.
I don't know what the records actually were. I'd have to go research it. But point being is, I'm sure the NFL history is littered with good coaches who were in bad circles. Bill Belichick, Cleveland Browns. So I don't know if you can, judge solely off the record in the first year or two. And the problem is sometimes when the record is bad after a year or two, the coach doesn't get another chance. But when I look at Robert Saleh, I think of somebody who just carries himself well. Seems like he's a bright, sharp guy. Seems like it has a steady demeanor, a steady hand. I don't like these coaches who come in talking like they're going to, about biting kneecaps off and stuff like that. I'm not like the rah-rah, like kind of thing. So I like him. That's my blink test. That's my instant reaction. I don't know how that bodes for his long-term future. But if you're telling me, do I think he appears to be a competent head coach and a sturdy purveyor of a franchise? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Robin, you're making a lot of good points here. And I think that's something we brought up on the show before is the Jets have a history of doing these kind of pendulum swings from coach to coach, especially when it comes to just their personality types. If you look back on it from Mangini to Rex and then Rex to Bowles and then Bowles to Gase, there's, but right now I really do feel that Saleh is kind of right down the middle where he's fiery, but in like a good way, not like a Rex type of way or a Dan Campbell, like you mentioned. So I do think that we're still excited about Saleh. I think 2 games is, you're not going to make or break in that. And there's obviously a lot left to prove, but I would like to ask you about the guy who hired Saleh, which is Joe Douglas. So now we're seeing him really year 3 into this with 2 full off seasons to build this. I mean, offensive line looked putrid week 1, looked to be improved week 2. That's kind of his thing, right? What he was touted to do. What are your thoughts on Joe Douglas here after these first 2 weeks and going into really year 3? And when does the seat start getting hotter for him? When do you think?
Well, I mean, yeah, this is the problem. You can't keep churning regimes out, and spitting them out. Like, I mean, or else you're going to be stuck in that endlessly. I think 3 years, though, should be enough of a sample size to say whether you think somebody is doing a good job, right? Or is heading in the right direction. So you want to see some strides from this team this year. I mean, you don't want to be having, him be making draft picks at the top of the draft every single season because the team needs to improve. But if you do look at the Jets, I'll ask you guys, like, what do you say the Jets are above the board at? Like, where do you feel good about their roster situation?
Like defensive line.
That's pretty much it. And I would say that I feel probably like top half of the league in wide receiver group.
Yeah,
I think
when healthy, injuries, we need to see them all together, and then we can make that evaluation. But on paper, yes.
But unequivocally, defensive line, yes.
For like the casual fan, how many Jets do you think the casual fan can name?
Not many.
Right now. Yeah, not many, right? Like, so, yeah. And that doesn't necessarily translate because football is, a lot of the people you don't know who are having, an effect on the line, stuff like that. But yeah, I would say by the end of this year, you would hope you have a pretty good idea of what this guy has done. Now, he did make some moves that would, load the cupboard up for the future and that kind of stuff. So you want to have a little bit of patience, and you can't just keep doing this over and over again. And you are dealing now with another new coach too, right? Like, so you don't want you want to give the coach a chance, you want to give the quarterback a chance. So I would that probably extends his job security, I would say, through next season.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, eventually you need results. But I would say he probably, because of the turnover at QB and coach, has this year and then at least part of next year.
So it's interesting you bring that up, and the reason I would say he may actually have an extra year, and the reason I say that is he was hired after the draft and free agency in 2019. So that team, even though he was the general manager when the season started, it really wasn't his team. The only additions he really did were stuff that happened right before the season, like in training camp. Like he signed Ryan Khalil to be the center, which was a terrible move. So it's really like 2 years and like a little, because that draft class is not his. He only has 2 draft classes and 2 free agency classes. And right now, his first draft class, 2020, is not looking very good. It's like, yeah, I mean, Mekhi Becton, we've seen flashes, but he's been a liability from a health standpoint. They have a good cornerback in Bryce Hall, it seems so far. They had a punter. He's hurt. And, I don't really know if you want to give him credit for a punter because it's not like the most important position in football, but it does matter. But yeah, I mean, Denzel Mims, which is the one topic that Jet fans are talking about, I'm sure you've seen on Twitter because you probably interact with a lot of New York people. He was a second-round pick. He was inactive this past game. And, what's the problem here? Like, he should be playing, especially when someone like Jamison Crowder, who's a starter, was out. And it's frustrating because you really want to see what these players can do. And these are his guys. There's no more like, this is the Mike McCagnon roster. It's not like he can't use that excuse anymore. So now it's like the pressure is starting to go on Joe Douglas. I mean, you got to hope that this year's class buys him some time. And so far, there's a bunch of starters. You would think that it has.
And also, let's be real about it. What's really going to determine it? Zach Wilson, right? Like, if Zach Wilson is good, he keeps the job forever. If Zach Wilson is bad, and the Jets, I don't know how long you can determine that or wait to decide that. I think you'll have a pretty good idea by next season, right? Like, if we're being honest, you'll have a pretty good idea by next season. That will determine his job security because that's the pick.
Yeah, no, quarterbacks are everything. That's literally like what makes or breaks a general manager. You can get all the pieces right except the quarterback, and then you're basically in no man's land. You're on a treadmill. I'm trying to think of the comparison in sports, but like you're basically like, I guess, like the 8th seed in basketball. Like you're making the playoffs, but you're really not doing anything.
And he had the chance. I mean, it's not like, it's not like you're talking about a reach or anything like that. He was sitting there with the number 2 pick. You knew exactly who was going number 1 the whole time. So there was no like mystery, you were basically on the clock the entire offseason. So and it was a quarterback heavy draft. You get to pick your guy, right? Out of Wilson and Lance and Jones and Fields. So that's got to hit for him. That's his job pretty much comes down to that.
No, and you're right. I think something that's interesting too is, I mean, granted, it was a different situation because Woody was over in England, but the Jets really, the ownership turned over the keys to the franchise to Joe Douglas. They really let him take the reins on this and run point on it from top to bottom. So he made the decision on Sam. He made the decision on Saleh. Yeah, John, Christopher Johnson and Jaime Elhai, they were involved, but they really are placing their trust in Joe Douglas. So to your guys' point, yeah, Steven, I think you're probably right that there's a third year in there where he gets some wiggle room, but it does come down to Zach Wilson. And if next year the Jets are 4-13 and Zach Wilson looks terrible, we could be having a different conversation. But if they're vying for a playoff spot and he looks the part, then yes, absolutely. I mean, Joe Douglas' job is secure. Yeah,
definitely. So I was going to ask you, Robin, just like your thoughts on Wilson. You kind of mentioned that you think he has some, tangibles and some traits that definitely look like, a legit NFL quarterback. But I'm curious, like, what your thoughts on him were to the other quarterbacks that the Jets could have taken. Obviously not Trevor Lawrence because we had never had a chance of him. And he's considered like the consensus, like Andrew Luck type prospect that you see once every like 10 years. So I'm curious, like, were you like sold that he should have been the number 2 pick? Were you more in the camp of Justin Fields? Because as someone who really liked Justin Fields, that's kind of who I wanted the Jets to take when I realized they were not going to picking number 1 because they decided to win 2 meaningless games with Adam Gase. I'm just curious where your head was at going into the draft.
Well, one thing I try to pride myself on a little bit is knowing what I know and knowing what I don't know and not pretending that I know more than I do about certain things. I'm not a quarterback scout, right? Yeah. Like college football is not my forte necessarily. These people are paid a lot of money and spend a lot of time to do this. So I'm not going to pretend because I watched some guy in a game, a Big Ten game. Oh yeah, Justin Fields had a good game. That I know better. But from what I just see, I was never big on Trevor Lawrence, at least to the level that he's been sold at. I don't see a transcendent talent. I feel like it's just like we've been saying that for years, and it just had to be, and they were forced to take him. I'm not saying he'll be bad or terrible or anything, but I never saw it. Even at Clemson, I never saw like, oh, wow. Because he's tall and has blonde hair. I don't know exactly what that was. So I thought, in a sense, the Jets were in a really fortunate situation there because you didn't have to deal with the possibility of that, the expectations there, and you got to sort of hand pick your guy. As far as the others are concerned, again, Fields probably had the biggest showcase other than Jones, who wasn't pegged as a prospect like that. I think Jones has the highest floor. I don't think, from what I've seen both in the preseason and in college and now in the regular season, I think, you're going to get steady hand from Mac Jones.
He's like Alex Smith to me. That's what I see. He doesn't overwhelm you with his talent, but he won't mess the game up. It's like he'll do the right things, but he's not going to elevate the team, is what I've seen. I mean, listen, I don't know. He did win the national championship.
Yeah, I mean, it's been 2 games in the Patriots offense too. So that's what he's being asked to do right now. So it's kind of hard to fully tell, but yeah.
Yeah. And then there's the 2 guys who none of us really saw that much of, unless you're like really seriously into this, and that's Lance and Wilson, right? Because of where they played. And obviously Lance didn't really play. Sometimes I make these decisions based on little things, but I interviewed Trey Lance and I really liked the way he conducted himself in the interview. I've seen obviously highlights and the like, and the fact that the 49ers traded what they traded for him, and he's in a good situation. Like, yes. I think the combination of all those things makes me a Trey Lance believer. Zach Wilson, that pro day throw, I mean, look, I know that's, you can't get carried away over something like that, but that is something that shows you, all right, physically there is talent there. Yes. And there's a level of mobility. I wonder sometimes about, again, did he play the highest level of competition? You can't see in a pro day throw how you'll read defenses, how you'll deal with adversity, all that other stuff that goes into being a quarterback. I think he has raw physical talent. The question, does he have the other stuff? That's what we're going to see. And you also have to be able to navigate the rough waters, because he's going to have some rough outings. He's going to have some games where he's not protected so much. I'm not going to lose my mind over one game with a bunch of interceptions where, one play's tipped or he's trying to force it here and all that. That's not the end of Zach Wilson, but he's got to learn from that. Like he's got to get better in that regard. But just from the sort of like, okay, I'm watching you, and my instant takeaway, I think he has more talent than Sam Darnold. I never thought Sam Darnold was that talented.
Interesting, Alex. That's usually his MO. People like Sam Darnold has all these like rare gifts. Like Tony Romo loved him. It sucks that Tony said the same thing about Zach. He's like, he has like that Patrick Mahomes like talent. He could get to that stratosphere very soon. I'm just like, great, here we go again.
Yeah, I'm not saying Darnold's some bum, but again, it's like Wilson, you can see him move and flip it across the other way, and it goes like I see high level competence when I see Sam Darnold, not like eye-popping talent. And I think Wilson has more of that. That doesn't mean he's gonna be better. And you ought to already see what's happened with Darnold when you put him in a better situation, right? Better infrastructure, better run team, all that stuff. You already see what difference that can make. Whether or not, he's ever going to be, a great quarterback or not, he clearly is better than he was with the Jets already.
Yeah, for sure. That's valid points. Steven, you go.
Yeah, I was just going to, so Robin, I know you got to jump off here soon, but just, what are realistic expectations for the Jets for the rest of the way here? What do you foresee? How do you foresee 2021 kind of closing out?
Yeah, I mean, I think realistic expectations, if you're a fan and you're looking at it from the glass half full perspective, is they get better as the season goes along. I wouldn't worry about the record too much. I would worry about the flashes and the progress. You don't want to see, the same team you saw in week 1 and 2 in week 9, 10, and 11 or whatever. Mm-hmm. You want to see Zach Wilson get better. You want to see them get more competitive. Obviously, you want to win some games, but I think if you're level-headed about it, there's no reason, you're not thinking playoffs or anything like that. In fact, I mean, probably the worst team in the division, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be a jerk. It just
we're not biased. We know.
No, we get it. Yeah.
Probably the worst team in the division. So I think when you're in that, but the good thing about it, and I hate to keep coming back to it, but the quarterback is the hope, right? And I think the better you see from Zach Wilson and the surrounding parts, the more optimism you have going forward. And if you don't see that from him, it's scary hours.
I mean, it's kind of been perpetually scary for Jets fans for, basically the last 10 years since they lost that Pittsburgh AFC Championship game. So Can't get much worse, right?
Well, and you don't want little kids picking out your plays and tell to straighten them on TikTok or whatever, right?
That video was funny.
If you have fewer little kid breakdowns on TikTok, then you're going in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah. Robin, I know you got to run, but thank you so much for joining the show. And like I said, guys, Robin puts out great stuff. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Robin Lundberg, and also all of his SI content. You have Unchecked, you have SI Right Now, and Now You Know. So, Robin, thanks so much for joining us.
You got it. And, I was at the Jets, the green and white scrimmage, right? So I think they're better than they were then. So let's hope they keep going.
Baby steps. Baby steps. Yeah, that's
Definitely.
It. Thanks, man.
Robin,
Appreciate
we'll talk
you
basketball this season. Don't worry.
All right.
Cool. So, guys, that was Robin Lundberg. Great time. Definitely follow him on Twitter, especially if you're a basketball fan, because he's always tweeting about Knicks, Nets. He gets a lot of Knicks fans in his mentions, and that's kind of how I discovered him years back. But so Steven, he's not as much a specific NFL guy. He covers all sports, but definitely covers the NFL and NBA really heavily. So we could definitely do more of just reaction to the game and thoughts and everything like that. So as someone who was watching on TV, unlike me, who was there in the hot sun, sunburnt, drinking some beers, eating some popcorn, what were your thoughts? I mean, I know we were going to go first, but what were your thoughts?
Well, I think, the Jets find them I'd like to peel it back for a second. I think the Jets and their fans find themselves in a weird situation here because the team doesn't care that the fans have been through a decade plus of playoff free and basically inept football. And Jets fans don't really care that the Jets don't care about that because, and in all honesty, we're really not asking for much. We're just asking for competitive football. So when Zach comes out and has the half that he does against Carolina and things are building and it's the first time the fans are back in the stands since 2019 and it's a new coach, a new quarterback and a new regime and everybody's excited and they're playing New England and it's going to be like the second coming of 2009 home opener and they throw a dud out there like that, that's just really painful. So we're not asking for much. We're just asking for competitive football. Maybe throw a few touchdowns in there, give us something to cheer for. I think that's what's a tough pill to swallow. So that's what kind of sucks. It's just, you're in a bad spot, but overall, you expect these games from Zach Wilson. He's a rookie. He's 22 years old. It's a first year head coach, first year play caller. I get it. You just really wish they wouldn't happen against New England. I listened to Badlands, the instant reaction. I think Connor Rogers said it best. You just hate that they keep losing to the Patriots for stupid reasons that shouldn't happen. And that's just what it feels like. It really is tough. They are going to progress. I'm not hitting the panic button. I rarely do. It's week 2. And I'll end with, I really believe that this game could have been totally different had the ref not blown that whistle on the first drive. Football is a game of momentum that could have shifted it. You're talking about a fumble recovery that probably could have been returned on the first drive of the game for New England in a packed house where Jets fans are chomping at the bit to see this team again. That could have really swung the game. We could have been talking about a completely different outcome had that call or had the ref not blown the whistle. But that's my time, man. I'll yield to you. You were there. What are your thoughts?
Well, it was fun up until the game started, just being with fans, seeing, tailgating, which is the best part about going to the game, because honestly, the watching experience is definitely better when you're at home. But for me, I was super excited. It was just, the atmosphere of just being back. If the last time I was there was week 1, 2019, and you all know how that ended. So that wasn't fun. But for me, it was the first throw, pick, which is great. It's like Sam Darnold's at the beginning of his career. So it was just hard, and then the second one happens. I'm just oh, great. I kind of got numb to it when the 3 and 4 happened. I didn't even really care. The third one happened when I was going to get a beer and I saw it on the TV when I was waiting in line, and it was right after all those sacks and that great defensive stand. And I was just it's just one of those days. As a Jets fan, you're used to it. This is what we deal with. We are born to watch incompetence. I'm not saying I accept it because that's not what I want. But that's just what it is. And listen, he's a rookie. He was horrible. He lost in the game. There were things that you could point to in this game that were positive. And we touched on this a little before with Robin. The offensive line was really good. I know we got sacked a couple times late in the game, but it was more because he was just holding on to the ball and nobody was open. The receivers really weren't getting open other than Barrios. Barrios was great. And I know everyone's like complaining, stop giving him the ball. I'm like, the guy's just trying to make plays. He's just doing his job. Like, get off the guy's back. It's crazy. But I want to go into some positives because Zach was atrocious. He lost us the game. I don't think we need to go on it. We're already a couple days out and we got to start focusing on what happens next week. But some positives. CJ Mosley was awesome. Like, that was something that I was really happy to see because we felt like we were waiting to watch CJ Mosley play football for like 5 years. And it was literally 2 years. And it was different when I rewatched the game on TV versus what I was seeing, because obviously I knew he was making plays because you can't miss the back of his head because he's got like that reddish, pinkish hair.
Yep.
But when I saw him on TV, I was like, wow, the speed is there. And I know he lost a lot of weight. And I was concerned that maybe he wouldn't like be able to hit as hard and just be as aggressive because he was a little bit lighter. But man, he did not miss a beat. So many plays. I know he didn't have any like sacks or any like fumbles or anything, but he just was every single play. He was there. And that was awesome. Like, I was just super excited to see that. Same thing with May. And I know on this show, we've spoken how May, we're like, do we need to pay this guy? He kind of justified why we maybe should pay him because we need good players. And, the defenses looked actually really good both games so far. And they kept the Jets in the game. So, there are things to take away. The running backs look pretty good with the exception of Coleman. He kind of was a little, he wasn't bad, but, Carter and Ty Johnson definitely look better. But I do want to talk about one thing that bothered me, and I'm going to pass it back to you. The game is 10-0. The Jets actually have a good drive. They get like first and goal. They're at like the 7-yard line. I understand that Salo's thinking was, we do not want to get out of the situation with any points. I get it. I understand your rookie quarterback threw 2 interceptions, his first 2 passes of the game. You were literally so close to the end zone. We want to score. But I'm sorry. I don't know if he basically gave the green light for this. Running the ball 3 straight times from the 7-yard line, only getting to the 2 instead of throwing on 3rd down, unacceptable. And I know LaFleur is getting a brunt of the criticism for how he's been calling plays. I really don't think he's the problem. Zach was the problem. The plays were pretty solid play calls. Like that one pick he had when he threw it to, I think it was to Corey Davis, he had Elijah Moore wide open. You could have just threw him the ball and, we could be a different game. So that to me really bothered me because the difference between being 10-3 and 10-7 is huge because we didn't score a touchdown. So think about how close we were and we didn't. And that bothered me. And I remember I was talking to my dad because we're sitting next to each other and we both were just like, why are they not passing on 3rd down? Like he was just like, he's like, they're protecting him. They don't want him to turn the ball over and rattle his confidence. But I just want to talk about that because that really genuinely bothered me. That was like really the only play calling issue I had because at the end of the day, in the second half, they're playing from behind. Zach was just playing hero ball. Interceptions 3 and 4 were ugly, but I kind of throw them out the window because the game was really over at that point. So it's just like, whatever. All right. Yeah. I had my nice little rant. So let's go.
No, I like it. I'd agree with you. I think, LaFleur, I think struggled in game 1. I think against the Panthers, he held on to the run for too long. He ran too many times on 1st and 10. And when the run game just wasn't working, he still was adamant about trying it. I think he got better in the second half. I didn't have as much of a problem with him in game 2. I do agree with you, though. I thought the 3 runs from the 7 or 8 yard line when they got down to 1st and goal, I thought, I get it protecting Zach, but that's also a roll of the dice because what if he throws a touchdown, that gets him right back in it. And maybe that's the momentum swing that he needs to kind of get his head back in the game and start getting him back on the right path for the rest of the game. One thing is interesting, and I got to give my buddy credit, but I have a Bills fan friend and we were talking and he said, it was a very good point. So I said I was going to pass it off as my own idea, but it's kind of surprising that outside of that 1-2 point conversion, they haven't run any RPO. Which is kind of a strength of Zach Wilson. That could be something to get him in the groove a little bit. And you fake a run, you run with Zach and you let him, take a hit, get the butterflies knocked out of him and you're good from there. So I think that's one interesting aspect of the game that we haven't really seen from LaFleur or from Zach Wilson. But in terms of bright spots that you didn't really touch on, I also thought that John Franklin Myers played with his hair on fire as well. And it seems like a shoo-in that him, Mosley, and May are the heart and soul of that defense. We're hoping that Quinnen can kind of come back and get himself back in there. I think maybe he's still dealing with the nagging injury a little bit, but we'll see how that progresses. I thought Michael Carter and Ty Johnson solidify themselves as running back 1 and running back 2. And Tevin Coleman had a nice little run, but I think he got 3 carries in this game. That's where it should stay at. The lion's share should go to Johnson and Carter. So I thought there were bright spots. I really did. I thought the defense played incredible, and considering that they've had 5 turnovers in 2 games and have only given up 4 touchdowns, I think that speaks volumes to what Saleh and Ulbrich are doing. And overall, I thought obviously Zach lost the game with 4 picks, but outside of that, it was an extremely positive game from every other standpoint, really.
Yeah. Top 10 defense right now.
It's crazy. It's crazy. And I know this point is getting brought up too. I know that Joe and Connor brought it up on Badlands, a couple of the TOJ guys on Twitter. There very well could be. You saw what the Panthers did to the Saints and Jameis. We could very well end up talking about this run of Carolina, New England, and Denver being the top 3 defenses that the Jets play all season. And that's a rough start for a rookie quarterback and a rookie play caller. So we'll see how it turns out. But this is a tough start going against a Belichick defense and clearly a good Panthers D.
Yeah, agreed. And it definitely softens up after the Denver game because they're going to play the Titans, whose defense gives up 1 million points. They're going to play the Falcons, whose defense gives 1 million points. Like that could be really the moment when Zach really starts to kind of put it together because it's not as aggressive like from a cornerback perspective, but the pass rushes aren't as strong. But you know what? It's the NFL, man, and he can easily show up this week. I mean, my expectations aren't super high. I mean, we're going to talk more about what we think what's going to happen later in the show. But, I just don't think anyone should panic. Like, it's like we're in the preseason is that great game against the Packers. Everyone's like everyone's like, oh, he's amazing. Like, I'm on the Zach train. One bad game in his rookie season, second start, first home game, probably a little nervous. Mm-hmm. Everyone's all out at him. He's a bust. Sam Darnold's better. All right. Like, come on, listen, Sam's in a good situation. You know what? I was like a little bit salty that we lost to him, but you know what? He's a good kid. He deserves it. And I always thought he had talent. And I know you were a big supporter of his as well. So good for him. I mean, look, if the Panthers keep winning, the fact that the Jets almost came back and won the game is going to make them look a lot better as the season goes on. So I'll just say that. And I do think the Panthers are going to win tomorrow playing the Texans on Thursday Night Football. So a 3-0 Panthers team doesn't look as bad as, the Panthers team of last year. So you just got to think about positive things. Another thing that was, I think, really good about the game the other day was, just the corners in general. Like, I know they weren't tested. I know Mac wasn't doing anything, but at the end of the day, he was taking what was there. And clearly, whatever the Jets were doing from a secondary perspective, he didn't see opportunities to test them. I think he had one really nice drop pass for 15 yards. That was great. But that was really the only thing that they gave up. And, they're young corners. Bryce Hall definitely looks like a keeper. And I know we talked about that with Robin before. So it's good to see that he's getting back to the form he was in before he got hurt in college. And, a Guidry and Michael Carter II, those guys look like players. I don't know how good they'll be, but we both kept saying prior to the season, the corners are really the biggest question mark on the defense because they're so young and unproven, and so far so good. And I think it has a lot to do with Saleh's scheme. And I think what Ulbrich is definitely hitting the right buttons, and he deserves probably the most credit on the coaching staff right now, because I know Saleh's the defensive guy and it's his scheme and stuff, but he's not calling the plays. He's overseeing the whole operation. So Ulbrich definitely deserves a lot of credit for the work he's done. And, if he keeps this up, he could be a head coach. And we're like, wow, someone actually wants someone from our staff,
Yeah, I know it. It's no, I agree. I mean, you have to grade it on the same scale that we're looking at the offense and Zach Wilson. It's 2 games in, so we're not going to sit there and say that, Bryce Hall is, solidified number 1 corner. But at the same time, it is considering what this defense specifically is going through from an injury standpoint and how they've looked through 2 weeks. You can't come away being anything short of impressed. Because I agree with you. I think Bryce Hall he's looked very good. And I think the 2 guys that are playing slot, and Guidry and Michael Carter II, are looking very good as well. And when you combine that with the fact that who was the guy that was playing safety alongside Marcus May?
Colbert.
There you go. A guy that just got off the street, right? I believe. Mm-hmm. Or, that's the deck is stacked against them, and they're performing against, Josh McDaniels, which is, that's no easy task. Exactly. So, no, I give the defense a ton of credit. I'm giving the young guys a ton of credit. And hopefully we don't know what's going to come on Sunday against Denver, but you never know. Crazier things have happened. Zach Wilson can get it together and throw 3 touchdowns and no picks, and the Jets come out, Denver with a win. We'll see. But it's definitely not panic button time. It's an extremely young team. You keep hearing it. Most rookie starters, most rookie, snaps across the board on both sides of the ball. You're going to have growing pains. I just really wish that it wasn't a 4 interception game against New England in the home opener. I really would have liked to just seen I could have stomached a 3-point, 4-point loss, whatever, but to put up that stinker, that really, that just stung.
I think the saving grace is that Mac Jones wasn't overly impressive. He was just fine.
Yeah.
It's like if he lit us up and burned our corners, which I thought he had a chance to do because they're so unproven, he didn't do that. So it's like,
no.
And everyone's saying he's like, I saw someone said this, he'd be the number one pick if they did a redraft. I'm like,
that's ridiculous.
2 games,
he has
2
one
touchdown. He literally has not thrown the ball downfield at all in 2 games. Like, let's talk about this when, the offseason's here about how good he really is. And it's in a good situation. The best coaching you could probably possibly get. McDaniel's one of the best offensive minds in football. Belichick's the greatest coach of all time. I mean, put Zach Wilson there. He's probably looking amazing right now. So everyone's got to just keep everything in context.
Exactly. And to go back to the Sam Darnold talk, I wish him the best of luck. And now that the Jets are done playing Carolina, I can root for Sam. He's a good kid. I want nothing but what's best for him. I can honestly say that I haven't thought twice about the move that the Jets made. And there's no part of me that's wishing that we had Sam back in that situation. And let's not forget that in year 2, we saw a worse game from Sam against New England, where the stakes were even higher. Where, the seeing ghost game, I think he threw 4 picks in that game, like maybe even 5, if I'm not mistaken. So
it was 4. Yeah.
Let's pump the brakes on that stuff because I can honestly say that I haven't thought twice about it. And this is the quarterback. Zach looks the part. Let's give him some time to actually, learn through this stuff.
One of the plays that he made, it was like, basically he almost got sacked and he made this crazy juke move. And I was like, wow, like that was impressive. Typically, I feel like when a guy is going to get sacked that easily, but from like another team, the Jets quarterback always goes right down, but he made a good play and got the ball away. I mean, it's just like little things, but something else he did was, we were talking about this before we went live, just that one play to Elijah Moore. And I'm glad that Elijah, made some plays. We got to see what he can really do. But man, that also was a play that could have changed the game because if he leads Elijah a little bit more towards the middle of the field versus going towards the sideline, he's gone. That was a great pass. I mean, just you got to make sure like when he has that much separation space from the defenders, there's one guy to beat. I think Elijah's going to juke that guy and get to the end zone based on the video you took where he has that move. So that was another one that you wish you could have back. So let's hope.
I agree. And same with, obviously he wants the 4 picks back. Same with the one to Michael Carter in the flat. That he kind of rolled left, looked back right, and Michael Carter was wide open with no one within 50 yards of him. I mean, if he gets that ball to Michael Carter, he's still running. And at that point in the game, that gets the Jets back in it too. So there's definitely a few that he wants back. I will say, though, hell of an open field tackle by him on the 4th pick that he just threw up there. I thought that was impressive.
Yeah. No more Braden Mann is the best tackler of the team.
There you go. Exactly. Take the reins.
The funniest thing was, I think it was like middle of last week, there was a video of him pretending to rush the passer in like a drill. And everyone's like, oh, should he be our edge rusher too? That's like, no, please everyone stop with these jokes. But yeah, I think we should, transition away. I think everything's been said. I don't even want to talk about Mims. Listen,
you don't?
What?
I said, you don't? Are you sure? You're exhausted by the Mims talk? You don't want to regurgitate this again?
It's just, I'll leave it with this. Listen, we all want him to play. We saw the flashes, but at the end of the day, we're not professional coaches. They are coaches. And if he's not cutting it for them and they don't think he's going to contribute in the ways that they want him to, that's their decision to make. He's a Joe Douglas pick. I'm sure Joe Douglas is probably like, why is he not playing? And Solid him around these discussions as to why he's not playing. Everyone's just stop complaining about it. It's a long season. He could definitely play again. Like, it's just stop. It's frustrating. It's like whatever. Like, I would have liked to have seen him play, especially because Crowder was out again. And it seems like he's going to be out again this week from what I've been reading. He had a setback on Friday with his groin. He's all fine from COVID, but we need Crowder out there. He'll definitely make things easier for Zach. But, just everyone stop complaining about Mims. It's 2 games in. He's going to play. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. Listen. It's not like we haven't wasted 2nd-round picks before. I could go down the list a million times. It is what it is at this point.
Yeah, but, you thought it'd be different. I mean, I'm sorry that I derailed this here and we're talking about Mims again. But I also thought, Caparoso brought up a good point on Badlands today, which was, you understand what Sal is saying with knowing each of the positions, but really they're not asking any of those guys that are in those positions to do anything different. They're not playing Corey Davis or Elijah Moore in the slot. Berrios comes out, Berrios slot receiver. Elijah Moore is outside, and Corey Davis is outside. So why can't Mims fit that role? I mean, why isn't he suited up? Especially, now listen, I'm not going to sit here and panic again because we're in a different wide receiver situation than we've been in years past. If this was, week 3 last year and Mims didn't suit up, then I'd be sitting on the table, pounding my chest for this. But I'm not going to do that. But at the same time, I just think they're kind of talking out of both sides of their mouth here I get the special teams thing, but with him not knowing the other positions, well, then play them at the position he knows, because the dude's 6'3", 215 with hands and speed. Find a way to make it work.
That's fair.
Especially when your target share is going mostly to Braxton Berrios, and then your Tyler Croft, the tight end, and backup tight end. Like that's what's frustrating. So I get it. I'm done. I'm exhausted talking about it too. I just feel like there's a little bit of dishonesty going on here, because they could find a way to make it work. And if LaFleur was the offensive mind that he is and touted to be, then he should find a way to get this guy in there.
Yeah, good players always find their ways themselves onto the field. Doesn't matter if their scheme fit. That's a bad excuse. Let's just stop talking about this, because I can't believe the things I see people say. I'm just like, get over it. It is what it is. We have other wide receivers that can make plays. Corey Davis sucked last week, but he was good week 1. So let's
exactly.
Go.
I don't think wide receivers are the problem with this team right now. So we'll end it with that.
All right. Yes, I agree. So let's talk about this week's game against Denver. Obviously, going to Mile High, it's their home opener. It's a tough place to play. The crowd is ruckus. The Jets have definitely had some bad history there. But the one thing I'll say is, and I think, the defense is obviously the strength of that team, and they're missing Jerry Jeudy, who I love and think is a really talented wide receiver. Teddy Bridgewater is a lot of what you've saw from Mac Jones. I know he's been slinging a little bit more this year because, they have some more weapons than he's had in his career at times. But I'm not overly afraid of him. And, Melvin Gordon's okay, and Javante's a rookie. It's obviously the defense on Denver's roster that scares me. But Bradley Chubb is obviously not playing, and he's one of their best pass rushers. Vaughn is a Hall of Famer. He's great. Their corners and safeties are really good. But I think people need to realize that, the Jets played this Denver team with a lot of the same pieces last year and moved the ball on them with Sam Darnold. So I don't think it's impossible. I know it's different. It's on the road, and, everything is a little bit harder on the road, especially now that there's fans are back. I'm not saying I think the Jets are going to win this game, because, to be honest with you, I don't. And, I'm going to go into why, what my final score prediction is and everything. But I think people have to realize it's the NFL and things can happen, and you could look really bad one game and then you could look great the next. So I don't know what we're going to see from Zach. I think he's going to rebound a little bit. I don't think he's going to play like he did last week. And if he does, everyone's going to go into a legit whirlwind of panic, which I don't want to deal with. But I think people need to realize the Jets defense is going to hold their own against some of these players that Denver has on offense. I think they're going to force Teddy to check down a lot more versus going deep. But yeah, I'm interested to see some of these matchups. I want to see this defensive line. I want to see Quinn to make some plays, because he's been disappointing. I know he's not technically a guy who's going to get a lot of sacks, but he hasn't made his presence known. It's I didn't even hear his name called from the PA guy when I was at the game on Sunday. And to me, that's a little bit alarming. Number 3 pick in the draft, and you were good last year. Let's see you do something this week. Especially now that JFM is questionable because he has an injury that he missed practice today. So let's just see what happens. What are your thoughts overall, just in terms of previewing this game?
Yeah, I get it. I don't have any expectations either, but do I think it's an absolute shoe-in that Denver's going to come out and kick our ass? No, I don't think that. I think it's all dependent on Zach Wilson and how the offense looks. I think that if they can play a mistake-free game, which is a big ask for a rookie quarterback, but if they play mistake-free, then they should be in the game. Denver's offense doesn't necessarily scare me. Their defense is good, but losing Bradley Chubb makes me feel a lot better about it. And that's a good point that you made. The Jets basically, they stuck with them and were in that game last year and scored points, against basically the same defense. So Denver's a tough place to play. Yes. But I think it comes down to Wilson, the offense, how LaFleur, calls plays, and the groove that he can get Zach into early on. And I think the Jets will be in this game, win or lose. I still think it'll be close. I think they bounce back. I think he continues with the run game, and we'll see how that goes. The tough thing is too, it's really been kind of a tale of 2 different games here. So you can't really take any one thing that you've seen so far through 2 weeks as the way the Jets are. You can't sit there and say that, okay, well, our corners are going to lock down, Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant and, everything's like that, or things like that. You also can't say that the Jets offensive line is going to have no problem with the Broncos D line, because we saw them look horrendous in week 1 and pretty good in week 2. So it'll be interesting to see, but I do think they'll be competitive in this game. At least that's what I'm hoping for. But I think all it boils down to is if the Jets beat themselves. And I just have a feeling that they're going to play smarter this week, specifically Zach Wilson.
Yeah, I think that the game plan's gonna be a little bit different. They're gonna tell them, we're gonna set up more easy throws and scripted stuff, especially in the beginning of the game. They're gonna be just take what's there. You don't need to take a shot every time. Like basically what I wrote in my pick six column this week was, he said during training camp that there was one practice where he basically was like, yeah, I want to see what I can get away with. He basically did that in the game. He was like, can I get away with this or can I? And he learned he can't get away with that stuff like he thought he could. It's not practice. I think he's going to be a lot more careful with the ball. I think like something that they might actually incorporate a lot more is some more design runs with RPOs, because I think they need to. He has that, explosiveness and like agility that he can really escape the pocket. So I think that they do lose the game. I'm going to say prediction is, like 24-13. I think they score 2 touchdowns, miss an extra point. Because that's just the Jets, because the line is 10.5. So I think that they will lose by 11 and not cover the number. And I think Zach looks decent, throws, maybe like 225, 1 touchdown, maybe some rushing yards. I think he doesn't throw a pick this week. I think maybe there's a fumble or something like that. Maybe he turns the ball over. But I do think it's going to be tough for them to go on the road to win. I hope that I'm wrong. I mean, listen, if they win, I'm going to be jumping for joy. But I do think it's going to be tough. That crowd's crazy. Every time they throw an incomplete pass, they have a chant that I heard is the most annoying thing, especially if you're an opposing fan. So, I mean, I'm excited. I'm hoping I'm wrong. But, yeah, I say, 24-13 Broncos.
So for no reason at all, I'm just going to say that the Jets win, and they win 27-23, because it's the NFL and crazier things have happened. And that's just what I want to happen. I was thinking about it the other day, man. Like, I think the number of times that I've like jumped out of my chair with excitement in the last 5 years, I can probably count on one hand. And that's sad, right? Just because it's been so bad. But I think it happens. And I think Zach turns it around. I think he has a good game. I think they play smart. I think they get the ground game going. I think we'll see more of Michael Carter and Ty Johnson. And I think the Jets win 27-23, because why not?
From your list to God's ears is what I'm going to say about that, because I would be so happy given what we saw last week. But the one thing I also will say is it's a late game. And every time the Jets are on at 4:00 and there's more eyeballs on the game, something bad always happens.
Except for that Dallas game in the Gase year, right? Yeah. In 2019, that was a late game.
They were going to get blown out. I remember I was like, no expectations. I'm like, they're literally going to get crushed because played deck. That was awesome. And like Sam was his first game back from mono. Yep. That was one of my favorite games I've watched in years. But the best game that I think I watched in a long time was when they beat New England. The last time we beat New England at MetLife, when Decker caught that touchdown in overtime. Like that was like probably the last time we jumped out of our chairs as Jets fans, because they had a chance of making the playoffs. So we don't want to go into what happened the week after. But I mean, listen, anything could happen. You see teams that aren't supposed to win all the time. And I think if this defense plays the way they do, and can keep the Jets in the game, the quarterback is going to play better. What we need to see is to get a more complete game from the offense is somewhere in the middle of what Zach did week 1. Same thing with what happened with the running game and offensive line. They don't have to be like the perfect versions of themselves, because that's just unrealistic to expect a perfect game, especially with a young team. But don't be so bad, and just be more in the middle. And I think, results will be better. I mean, I'm just hoping Zach just doesn't try to force things. I'm hoping that the game plan is a little more simplified for him. Not Mac Jones-esque, but, like short passes. And then, maybe they'll scheme up some stuff where like a play action deep pass. But stop running the ball in second and long every time. That drives me crazy. I know that they weren't really doing that because Zach was forcing the ball, but that's just definitely something I can't stand.
Yeah. And one thing, the Jets haven't done in 2 weeks really is force turnovers. I mean, outside of a botched handoff from Sam Darnold, down on 4th and 1 and deep in the Jets territory in week 1, they haven't done it. And one that should have been on the first drive of last week. But so, Teddy Bridgewater is not really the guy to make huge mistakes. That's kind of what his MO is he's more of a safer guy. But let's say they get after him a little bit for, get a sack fumble, or maybe they do, force a pick or two. That's something that can obviously really swing the game. The Jets haven't really done that in the first 2 weeks. So if they can get, a couple of turnovers here and there, that could obviously change the momentum and swing it in the Jets' favor, which is something that I think we'd all be extremely excited to see.
Yeah, I tweeted this today. I just don't want to be in a state of Jets depression when the 60 Minutes teaser happens and like the 6:00 hour about after the game. Like you hear that ticking noise and there's just that dark cloud of the Jets over you. Can
Yeah.
it be more positive, please? Like,
Just-
I just don't
yeah.
want to be upset about this team.
Exactly. Give us a chance at the end where it's not a 2-score game and the other team, kneels on it. I want to just let me be in it until the end. Give us a chance to win it when the clock hits 0. That's all I really care about.
Like, literally, if Zach plays a solid game and they have a chance to win the game and he throws an interception on the last play, sure. It's a rookie thing that's going to happen. Like, you don't expect it. Like, I don't expect him to be like Justin Herbert. Like, that's just not going to, it's not realistic.
Mhm.
Like, he doesn't have, the roster around him to do that. And it's a young team. And, we just need to temper the expectations. We said this for a while, but we're impatient. And I understand why fans are impatient. I understand why they booed. I personally did not boo. I didn't really care at that point. The game was over anyway. But like, for anyone who's saying that fans can't boo or it's like immature and be better, you're a paying customer. You're not getting a satisfaction from the product that you're paying to enjoy. Boo all you want. And you know what? Zach took it like a man. He said they should boo. And that's something that really encouraged me about how he can bounce back. And I think Salah's been handling it well, in terms of what's been going on with him. It's funny how he made a joke about his mom saying how the receiver should be playing, even though she doesn't know anything about football, which is great. But moms know best, right?
It was, I think Salah, he continues to handle himself very well. I think Zach Wilson handles himself very well. There's one thing, after that fumble that wasn't, seeing Salah so jacked up on the sidelines, I just like to see that. It's good to have some fire back on the sidelines again for once, because, after the last 2 coaches, it was just so just dead there. So I'm happy to at least see that he's got some fire. He's got some spark there and gets going a little bit after a bad call.
Yeah, no, I love that because it was hard to see. I saw him talking to the officials when I was at the game, but when I saw it on TV and just seeing it up close, I was like, yes, this is the guy that we thought we were getting. He was going crazy and his veins are popping out. I'm like, yes.
I know.
It seemed like he was like telling them the rules. Like, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Like, I was like, yes.
And I know we were talking about it before, and I hate to keep going back to this, but it really just bugs me because that whistle was extremely early. You could tell, and he blew it. It was early for the play anyways, but he blew it after Marcus May pretty much recovered the fumble. So it's just as clearly a blown call as you could ever see. I know you watched it back. You didn't really see it when you were in the stands, but it was just, it's one of those things that's extremely frustrating because I really felt like it could have changed the course of the game.
Unfortunately, I hate to give you this reality, but when you're playing the Patriots, you're never getting those calls.
Never getting a call.
You don't.
Shades of Safarian Jenkins.
You want to know the only time the Jets got a call like that? Remember when they played the Dolphins, I think the first year Gase, when there was that pass interference call that they challenged and they reversed it? That's the only time I could ever remember them getting a call that they never should have gotten because that was a horrible call. And I didn't blame Brian Flores one bit for screaming on the top of his lungs at the officials. He was absolutely right. The Jets basically got a free win because of that.
Agreed.
So that's the only time I can remember.
Doesn't happen against the Pats. For sure as hell does not happen against the Pats.
And you would think that now it's a rookie quarterback. It's not Tom Brady. They're not going to get those calls. But I guess until Bill is gone, they're getting those calls.
Yeah, it's crazy. It really is.
But any closing thoughts as we head into the Denver game?
No, this week was tough, but again, it's a rookie quarterback. Let's give him some time. If he looks like this next week, then heads are going to roll and Twitter's going to be insane. But still, we gotta take the lumps. They're going to happen. Just know that it's a long season. And Robin said it best. You hope that the way they looked last week isn't the way they took come weeks 9, 10, 11, and to close out the year. So let's just hope we see progress. Let's hope we see they bounce back. Let's hope the coaching staff learns from some of the things that they've seen in the first 2 weeks. I think you saw progression from LaFleur. I think Ulbrich obviously is coaching his ass off. So let's just hope we see some things that they can kind of build upon as we get to, weeks 3, 4, 5 and keep going.
Yeah, totally agree. And as always, guys, remember to follow our show on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Let's Turn on the Jets TV on YouTube. Make sure you follow our podcast feed on either Apple, Spotify, or Google Play. You get our show, you get Will's show, and draft season's coming back in a few weeks. Definitely don't want to miss that, especially because we're always thinking about the draft because we don't make the playoffs. So that'll be fun from the draft season, guys. Great content. And last but certainly not least, make sure that you also join our Patreon. I know we're getting very close to 2,000 Patreon users, and I know Joe and Connor are so appreciative of everyone who's done it. And definitely today, check out Connor's All 22 film breakdown, especially if you're wanting to see how Elijah Tucker's been performing. He was awesome, and Connor broke it down really well. So definitely check that out. And we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy the game, and let's hope for